Hi everyone, this is Rosh from Lifestyle Mastery, and I'm excited to have Evan Zhao, who's the founder of Revela, who's a bioengineer with a Ph.D. from Princeton and a Schmidt Science Fellow at Harvard. Evan excited to bring the newest biotechnology to consumer wellness. Revela's got the funding from good friends VC, Omics Funds, Buckley Ventures, and others. A big thank you to Patrick Pische from Innovia Capital for the introduction. Welcome to the show, Evan.
Thank you so much, Rohit. It's super nice to be here. Thank you for taking the time.
Awesome. So, you have an interesting journey. You've done your PhD. What made you decide to get into, biotechnology and create Revela?
Yeah. So, I guess I'm someone, I think of myself as an academic nomad. I just did stuff that I found really interesting. And I'm a firm believer that, life and society has gotten better because of technology. And I wanted to be a part of that since I was very tiny. When I was in undergrad, I was really into bioengineering and chemistry. And I was trying to learn about the pharmaceutical space, how to make an impact in the drug discovery space. And when it came time to decide what I wanted to do next, I had this big inflection point in my career, whether to go into academia to do more PhD research, or to go actually into industry and do oil and gas, or do computer science. And I really decided that I was more interested in the innovation sector and trying to figure out completely new chemistries and technologies that we could bring into the world. I had a really nice PhD. I really enjoyed it. And I think what it gave me was the freedom to explore new things and to really try my best to make an impact on as many fields as possible. I think that's been a gift in my life, is really having the freedom to explore different disciplines and figure out what I like to do and what I liked actually working on. I think that's really rare, and I'm really fortunate to have had that experience. And I think halfway through my PhD, I realized that industry was where a lot of really great innovation was happening in this space, but it wasn't getting the, I guess, attention that academia was getting, because a lot of it wasn't sexy. It wasn't like, 30 years in the future kind of thing. A lot of it was a step-by-step kind of building blocks on how to make innovations. And that's where I kind of saw this space where using academic innovation and really trying to impact on industry could have a huge impact, which is taking newer technologies and applying it to industries that have not gotten stale, but have kind of stalled in innovation because making minute progress has not led to the yields that they would want. And so, I was looking for different things to work on towards the end of my PhD, and I fortunately had exposure with the innovation department at Princeton, who they were sponsoring different research projects. So I got to learn about the exciting world of venture capital, exciting world of startups. And really, it just opened up my own kind of very narrow world into this VC space, and this kind of high speed, high money, kind of high capital world. And so, yeah, that's how I got in. And I've never been able to stop thinking about it since.
Yeah, no, I think that's super interesting. And, I wanted to understand, how was your experience in California Institute of Technology and your work as PhD? I've also done my studies from university, and it's always interesting for people to, do their PhDs, and they usually pursue a career in academics. But how was your entire experience there in Princeton and California Institute of Technology?
Definitely. So Caltech is a very academic place. I think a lot of people go on who do their PhDs or who go to undergrad at Caltech to go on to be professors. That's kind of what they instill in you, which is great. I think we need more professors and we need more people that teach. But I found my time there to be extremely, I guess, eye-opening in terms of the crazy stuff people could do. And I found myself feeling, and this was no fault of Caltech. It was no fault of really anything, but I really liked the things that my mechanical engineering friends were doing or my computer science friends were doing. And that was, they could take what they learned in class and they could make an immediate impact on the world, which for my field, chemical engineering, bioengineering, is really difficult. It takes, years to put together new projects. It takes years to really create the thing that you want to do. And as an impatient kid, I think that was a big learning process for me, is how was I going to take all of my impatience and channel that into trying to do something really grand with my life. So when I went to do my PhD, I was trying to look for ways to make an impact on the world more directly. So my PhD wasn't on therapeutic development. It was actually on yeast engineering and bioengineering in general. You get really quick result times. You can get results in weeks and months. And that was really exciting because I was able to slowly make the progress and really try to innovate at a scale that I wasn't able to do in undergrad. And then, academia is interesting because I think it's a really great program, but for what it is, it's a little bit slow in terms of adapting to the world. There's been a lot of news recently about, even in terms of social issues, how far behind academia it is compared to other things. There's a lot of weird power dynamics in academia, more true in certain schools than others. But on top of all of that, it's an interesting kind of place because they're trying to train the future innovators of the world. And they're trying to train people that will take the moonshot projects. But a lot of the system is designed for that really incremental progress, right? If you want to get a career, you have to publish papers. Publish papers, you should be doing things that are more or less short shots. You should be, trying to take, the right path forward. Whereas, the way to make real innovation happen is to take these risks, right? The thing people bring up is CRISPR, which was this like really weird bacterial defense mechanism. It turned out to be the future of biotechnology with gene editing. And I don't think that really would have happened if, all the people that contributed to CRISPR stuck to the traditional academic pathway, which was, we want to do the thing that gets us low-hanging fruit, gets us as many papers as possible. So I found that to be very contradictory. And, a funny story, now that you mentioned Patrick, after I had my PhD, when I was interviewing for my fellowship, Patrick was actually an interviewer. And at that point, I was really convinced that I wanted to do academia. I liked doing research, and I liked the idea of trying 10 projects at the same time. But Patrick asked one question in an interview that really changed my life, which was, why wouldn't you do this in industry? What is industry missing that doesn't allow you to do this? And that was really a question that I thought about for a long time. And I reached back out to Patrick about that question, which is how we know each other. It's been a very fortunate kind of decision in my life to reach back out. And I kind of came to the conclusion that academia can take the same moonshots that industry does, but they do it less often because of funding constraints. And the thing that's changing about the world is there's just been so much money in industry recently. That industry that used to be constrained by the money because you had to make profits, you had to make revenue, is no longer constrained by the money. People can do moonshot projects. Google X, right? Google X, all the Microsoft labs, all of those really moonshot laboratories, they have been able to make grand innovations in these spaces. The canonical example is Bell Labs, that unfortunately is not as glamorous as it was before. But really, industry has been able to create these hubs of innovation that, in some ways surpasses what academia can do. And I think that's been something that changed in the last 5 to 10 years that I'm really excited about. And I think the world will be a really interesting place when the heavy innovation centers are no longer schools and are actually these giant hubs.
I think that's a super knowledge about your experience. And I want to deep dive into Revela's. What is the Revela's hair revival serum, and how did you go about? Or was it a pain point that you had faced, and what is it that you're trying to solve through this?
Definitely. So the way that Revela came about was, the pandemic happened and we were all kind of sent home from Harvard, and we were just kind of looking for things to do. So we kind of looked at what we were doing, and some of us were doing drug discovery projects. So we were trying to find things that could solve things like cancer. And the very same technology was interesting to me because it's not really a drug discovery technology. It's using machine learning, using synthetic biology to discover new drugs. You could use it for really anything. And it was kind of weird to me that nobody was using this really new technology, in the past 5 years for something like consumer goods, like skincare, hair care, where people openly know that things don't work. And so, I was asking some friends, hey, why do you think this isn't happening? And I couldn't come up with a good answer for it. So I figured maybe this is something we could try, and then I could try and really make a difference. And, I actually thought up when I first started the project, I wanted to do muscle growth because I grew up with, all my friends were guys, and I kept hearing about creatine and like the miracles of creatine and all those other things for lifting, that kind of culture. But as I was thinking about it, I was thinking there's probably other things that are easier than muscle growth that there aren't real solutions for. And so really an inspiration came from me from my mother, who she's been suffering from hair loss for her whole life. Starting from when she was late 30s, she has been dealing with it for upwards of 20 years, and she really hasn't found a solution. She's tried everything. She's tried all the products on the market. And if you just dig a little deeper, you'll find that there's been very little scientific evidence on what helps with female hair loss or female hair thinning. And people really haven't done the necessary steps to discover what actually works. Instead, a lot of these products have a lot of filler ingredients. They have things that are like nutrients that help add nutrients to the hair, but they don't really solve the core issues. Fortunately for male hair loss, there are some ingredients on there that help a lot, but they come with side effects. But that being said, I really wanted to focus on something that I think I really wanted to do was help my mom grow hair again. Her entire top part of her head is bald, so I was thinking that could just be something that is really awesome. That if I could create a product that could help her with that, so we set out to have the company really go and discover something for hair growth and for really helping people get thicker hair where they want it. And we basically took the problem, we broke it down into a very engineering problem, which is unlike what other people do for other cosmetics. Usually what people do is, if you think about how, aloe vera was discovered, it was a plant, and somebody one day was like, hey, if I put this on my face, I don't feel as bad from sunburns. And that compounded over time has turned into a lot of skincare, a lot of what hair care is. But nobody's really broken it down into an engineering-like concept. Like I was saying, I really envied my mechanical engineering friends because they could start and they could build robots. They could start and they could build lofts that use the skills that they learned. And fortunately, I was able to do that here. We were able to think about what were the issues with hair, how do we get people to grow more hair, and what were we actually trying to solve. And we were able to quickly create an engineering problem out of this. And after about, it actually was only 9 months, we're able to bring a product to market. And our product hasn't launched yet. It's launching next month. But it was a really rapid process that I don't think could have been done without this engineering-based approach. And this is something that I think has been a dream of mine, really taking the engineering mindset and applying it for something where it really wasn't relevant before. And so that's where we went with the hair serum. And now we've packaged it, we formulated it so that it can absorb well into the scalp and help people really stimulate the hair follicles underneath your scalp and get your hair to grow. So the way that it works is exactly that. All we're doing is communicating to the hair follicles, hey, it's time for you to grow a little bit more, bud. And the hair follicles grow a little bit more. And as we add more and more of it, it grows slightly faster and slightly faster. So it's a very basic concept. As you can probably imagine, this will work on almost anywhere in your body. You notice that I shaved my head. I don't know if people can see this, but I did shave my head to test the product. And when we actually apply it to our heads, you see hairs growing out on other areas of my face, like in between my eyebrows and my forehead. I have these hairs growing that normally wouldn't grow there, but because our serum is stimulating the hair follicles, we're getting hair growth in places that we're applying the serum. So it's quite incredible at what this engineering can do.
I think this is super interesting because a couple of things you talked about is the same process can be used to solve cancer, and I know the product is coming out next month, but I would love to use the product because I'm losing a lot of hair, and I'm worried I'll go bald in a couple of months. So definitely, I would love to use the product and see if it works. And really interesting to see that you've been using the product and you've been the tester, so it looks like it really works. Uh, yeah, and I was wondering, what is the cost of building the product, and unit economics? So do you build the product in China, or is the product all made in US?
It's all made in the United States.
Okay.
So, I mean, part of building a company during COVID is we have a lot of weird COVID things happening. It has been a strange couple of months for the world, or a couple of years for the world.
Correct.
And what has happened actually, and this is it's good for the United States, is the shipping has become prohibitively expensive from places like China. And when you try to get supplies out of China these days, it takes months to get anything. And so, do you remember when the giant ship blocked off the Suez Canal and all
Yes.
shipping stopped?
Yeah,
that was about when we were thinking about ordering raw materials and really trying to figure out what we were doing. And so, we were able to adapt, and we were able to figure out that there are a lot of manufacturers in the United States that can create a product that works very well at a price that's affordable. And fortunately, we have this extra kind of technology in our product. So we were able to get that lead ingredient synthesized. We were able to get all of that done without a lot of other worries. What we have to factor in is it took us a lot of money to do R&D for this product. So we raised a really early pre-seed round from some great angels to start the discovery process. And the way that AI for drug discovery works is you need data. So you have to generate lots of data in order to feed it into the machine learning algorithm so that it can learn what is good and what is bad for this process. And after we did that, we were then able to order completely novel ingredients that we could test in-house. So that entire process cost a lot of money. It was kind of like the full drug discovery process, but we have to price that into what we're selling, and then we have to make sure that we can keep the lights on so that we can keep doing exciting projects like stuff for skincare, stuff for muscle growth, and other things that we have in our pipeline.
Got interesting. And I understand that you're into launching the product by next month. But how do you look at since you're like the product leader for the company, how do you look at decision making process when you're building the product? And do you think the velocity or decisions a founder takes in the entire day, how does it determine the quality of the company and the product?
Definitely. And I think this is something that I had to learn really quickly. You have to make a lot of decisions when it comes to really launching a consumer product. There's a lot of decisions that you have to make within the day, and within a couple of hours sometimes, especially because there's all these delays that are happening. Things have to get out as soon as possible. Which manufacturers you have to go with, all of these kinds of things. This is something that I found to be really difficult coming from academia, where the general methodology is pray and spray, where you try as many different things as possible, and then something usually turns up. It's why things are generally slower in academia than in industry, because there's not a really specified approach. You don't have one thing that you're really trying to do and really trying to push through. So when we make decisions about the product, we really try to come at it from two angles. The first is minimal viable product. What do we have to make so that people are happy with what we're doing? And for consumer space, the packaging has to be spot on. So everything needs to be pretty, the branding needs to be very nice, and things need to feel like it's worth the money that we're charging them. It's worth trying out something completely new. So that's something that we had to learn as a team, and we really had to dig into, is how do we make people feel like, this could be the greatest serum in the entire world, but people have to feel like that too. It can't just be words. It has to be an emotion that comes with the product, because that's why people buy things, is emotion. We have that as a major decision point. And then the other decision point for our company as a whole is, how do we make it so that people correlate Revela with stuff that works? And this is the longer vision of the company, is we're not trying to sell hair care products. We're not trying to sell skincare products. That's not really the goal of Revela. The goal of Revela is to change the way consumer goods work, is to really set a standard that nobody else has really done before in terms of efficacy, in terms of things that work and things that deliver over and over and over again. So when we decide what products we want to launch and how we formulate the product, all that stuff, one of the key decision points is, will people be able to see the results? And how will this influence how they feel about the brand long term? So 5 to 10 years from now, because that's what we really want to be. We want the stamp of Revela to be something that people can look at and be like, hey, this has Revela on it. That means that they've done the research and they really know that it works, which is very difficult. It also requires us to think in a very long-term way. So that's why we went with the hair care product first. It's not because hair care is inherently easier. It's not because it's not as good as skincare or something else. It's because you can see hair, and that's something that we really liked about that particular product. Is if we can get people to grow hair, which we can, then we can get them to realize that our stuff works, and by doing so, we really provide people with an evidence point, right? A point where they can go to their friends and say, hey, like, I actually have more hair growing here. I have thicker looking hair here. And so that really is another part of a key point that I think a lot of venture capital funded companies have to be concerned about, that normal companies don't, because their goal is to sell products.
Correct. And obviously you talk about during pandemic, Revela really had a boost. But what were some of the biggest learnings on how to run Revela during a pandemic? And I'm sure you're looking at hiring people, or you already had people, but what attributes do you look for getting A-level players on your team?
Definitely. So I think during a pandemic, it's hard to build team dynamics because a lot of people are working from home. So we were very fortunate in that when we actually were working more in person, the pandemic had subsided slightly. So a lot of regulations were in the Boston area were loosened up because a lot of people were vaccinated. So we were able to do some in-person office, a couple of times per week. And that's really helped with company culture and really helping, to solidify who we are as a company. I would say in terms of, really recruiting the right people, we basically just look for cockroaches, right? So we look for people that will do what it takes to get stuff done, and people that are relentless in the pursuit of high quality. I saw a couple of talks on this previously, and really the general theme has been, you need to make sure that everybody in the company is working towards the goal and that they will do whatever it takes to get the goal done, especially early stage. All of our hires are basically generalists, so they do everything that the company needs to do. We have our machine learning scientists coordinating some some stuff with packaging, some stuff with the website development. We have I'm doing a lot of Google ads, I'm doing a lot of other things, and that's really necessary because I think there's just so many random things that a startup needs to execute on. You need to be able to, one, trust the people that you're working with, and two, you need to be able to make sure that they can adapt to those things. So the piece of advice that I got actually from Patrick was, if you're going to work with somebody, especially this early stage, you need to make sure that they can do the job that you need them to do better than you think that you can do it. And I think that's something that's really important that a lot of people don't appreciate, because as someone who's I think well of myself, but not super highly. But if I don't trust what somebody else is doing, then I'm going to spend extra effort out of my schedule to redo what they're doing. It's going to make them feel bad. It's going to make me feel bad for doing extra work, and that's unacceptable in a startup because time is of the essence, and you can't be redoing everything. So I would say that has been the best piece of advice that I've gotten, is you really just need to trust at the end of the day, after all the interviews, that this person is going to execute better than you would have. So whatever happens, that's all you can really ask for.
Got it. And you run this business out of Massachusetts. Do you think Silicon Valley is the mindset, or do you think some of the best of talent and companies can come out of those smaller ecosystems.
Definitely. So Boston is very well known for life science venture capital, but the way that life science venture capital works is very different than Silicon Valley. A lot of times they'll recruit a very senior C-level team to then raise like $50 million and then launch a drug, right? That's the goal of a life science technology company. Silicon Valley is very different. They believe in founder-driven teams. They believe that the founder is the essence of a company. So it's extremely different than the technology focus in Boston. I will say what I've experienced these last couple of months is that there are no longer really regional restrictions. Because of Zoom, because of the pandemic, nobody traveled when we were fundraising. And so meetings all happened through Zoom. Deals are happening through Zoom. Nowadays, the venture environment really encourages fast decision-making and really just betting on people. And so I think anybody in the United States, no matter where you are, can at this point raise money from Silicon Valley or from New York or from LA, where those hubs are. It's really disrupted the way people think. And online, people are all moving to Miami or Houston. And that's been enabled by the Zoom economy and how people are interacting online.
And I say in some of the major cities, people are moving out of the major cities. But what it leads to a remote first culture is that then you're competing with a lot of talent everywhere. So how do you look at the decentralization of talent moving forward? And do you think people would want to live in the bigger cities and work in that setup?
Yeah, I do think people, there's a lot of more people that want to work remotely. We're very fortunate because we don't, we have tech talent, but we're not actively hiring loads and loads of engineers. I know that engineers and computer scientists, that's where the kind of crunch for talent is right now. We're very fortunate. We work with a lot of marketing. We work with a lot of people not in that really crunch space. But I will say that I do feel like more and more people are missing the in-person experience. And so there are a lot of younger people that are preferring to go into work because after about a year and a half of just staying at home, I think it gets very lonely. And so there is going to be a very interesting shift. I can't predict exactly how it's going to go, but I do think people are going to be more and more open to going back into the office, which means a flock back into the bigger cities. I will have a plug. So we're not actually in Boston. We're in a small town outside of Boston, which I have really enjoyed having a company here because we're close enough to the city where we have access to city talent, but we also, the rent is really cheap. We can keep overheads low, and it's overall been a very pleasant experience because you're not dealing with heavy traffic going everywhere. So I think maybe the suburbs of the big cities might be getting a boost from this pandemic.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's what I've seen in some biggest cities like London and other cities in Southeast Asia. But a lot of founders tie their identity to the future or to the company. How do you think about your own identity and how it is tied to Revela, which is the company? Do you keep it separate? And how do you look at a situation where you get so engrossed in running the company? Do you feel that your identity is tied with how the company is going to perform?
Yeah, I do feel like my identity is very tied to the company. I think that's probably necessary because founders, I think if you don't have the skin in the game and you're not as invested, it's very difficult to succeed, especially in the kind of high capital world where people are throwing money at things. You really have to feel like this is the right thing to do and this is what you want your impact to be on the world. I found that having hobbies helps to soothe some of that. So I play soccer in my spare time. And the nice part about working in consumer goods is I've been able to learn a tremendous amount from this space that I didn't know before. And I think as long as you have that kind of learning experience and really feeling like you're not just doing that one thing that you really, really want to do, and leaving your comfort zone, it's actually a good thing to be tied to the company because that means your identity is constantly evolving. And the way that you think about how you're selling things and how you are interacting with your own life is constantly evolving. Having that kind of introspection really helps. And I would encourage, if somebody feels that their identity is too tied to the company, that they try having their company do some side projects where they can then explore things that might be beneficial to the company, but also are more beneficial for themselves.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I play calls and, I like to read. I think, as you rightly mentioned, side projects and side hobbies, like podcast is like a side project for me. It does really help the company, but really helps the person to grow as well. I hope more founders listen to this story. But I quickly want to do the top three. What's your favorite business book?
So I'm gonna be really honest with you. So I really like 0 to 1, and this is a book that everybody told us to read. But I was thinking about it, and there's another book that I would recommend called Startup Leadership. It's by Professor Derek Liddell at Princeton. I actually took his class. It was an amazing experience, and this is a book that really combines leadership with psychology and thinking about different personality types, how people interact, and what drives people to do what they do. There's a really interesting quote from the class that I remember where one of the founders that he brought in said, "This company is not going to fail because it's a revenge company." And I thought that was really interesting, and that's something that he delves into in the book, is that revenge is an intrinsic motivation that really drives people to work as hard as possible and have their identity be ingrained into the company, because that's all you really want, is that the kind of implicit motivation. And I think if you're interested in exploring the more psychological, the reasons why people behave the way that they do, this is an excellent book.
Yeah, no, I think I'm definitely going to read it. Looks super interesting. I'll put that in the show notes. If you could go back in time when you started Revela, I know it's been just a year for you, but what are the one thing you would have focused on or done anything differently?
Definitely. So I think we have had a lot of success working with smaller companies that don't have a ton of people, don't have a ton of reputation, and are eager to win with us. We have an amazing website design firm called Pivify. We have, other amazing firms that we work with. And we've noticed that the smaller ones that we work with have been the most successful. They have really delivered. They're always on schedule, and they really want to make sure that we're happy and that we're satisfied with what they deliver. Whereas when we worked with a bigger firm in the past, that has been an awful experience. They don't prioritize a smaller company, and it's a dreadful experience, to say the least. So I would just tell former Evan, work with the little guy, because they're going to put in all of the effort.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Sometimes smaller companies, they really put in that kind of effort because they want to work with startups, and they understand the ethos and what goes behind building a company. And we have your favorite online tools, example, Gmail, Slack, Zoom.
Yeah, so we like Slack a lot, so we use Slack. But I will say, I'll make a plug for another company that we use. We really like the tool called Main Street. So they're a tax credit system where you do like a 15-30 minute interview with them, and they're able to save you a bunch of money through taxes. I would recommend anybody who hasn't looked into tax credits to really talk to them, because they do a phenomenal job. It's a super easy process. And I think when I was using it, I was like, this is what a SaaS should be. It's an extremely easy, happy process that saves us much money.
Got it. We'll put that in the show notes. Even what is the best way people can reach out to you and know more about Revela?
Definitely. So we have a website, getrevela.com. So please check out our website. Join a waiting list if you're interested in the hair serum. We have an about page that talks a little bit about our story. I can also share with you my email, and if somebody's interested, they can reach out directly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think we'll put that in the show notes. Evan, thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us. I really enjoyed my conversation with you.
Thank you so much, Rahit.